Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of our live webinar series, proudly brought to you by immigrationquestion.com, your trusted source for up to date immigration news, legal insights, and live conversations with licensed immigration attorneys. My name is Anisha Mukherjee, and I'll be your host for today's important session, VAWA. Isn't just for women, protecting male survivors in abusive marriages to U.S. citizens or LPRs. When people think of domestic abuse, especially in the context of immigration, men are often left out of the conversation. But the Violence Against Women Act, or VAWA, is a powerful humanitarian law designed to protect all survivors, regardless of gender. That includes men who have suffered emotional, psychological, or physical abuse in the hands of a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident spouse. Whether you're a survivor yourself, supporting someone who is, or working as an advocate or legal professional, this webinar will shed light on an often overlooked form of protection and how to use it. Today, we are joined again by attorney Avalon Paul, a licensed attorney with years of experience handling complex immigration and family law cases. Attorney Paul brings a clear, compassionate, and practical approach to her work, helping people navigate the immigration system with strength and dignity, even with the most sensitive situations. Welcome back, Attorney Paul. We're glad to have you back on the show.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Before we dive in, a quick but important reminder: immigrationquestion.com is a two-in-one platform that connects users with licensed immigration attorneys. We are not a law firm and we are not affiliated with AILA or USCIS. All legal services are provided independently by attorneys in our network. So let's jump right into it. Attorney Paul, let's begin with the basics. VAWA was originally passed to protect women, but it's broader than people realize. Can you explain how VAWA protections apply to male survivors and what type of abuse is considered valid under the law?
Yes, thank you for that question. So, VAWA is for any spouse or even children of American citizens or permanent residents or green card holders. And so, when we think of these petitions, we always need to include proof. And so, when a man files a petition, of course, we're going to submit supporting evidence that he was married to the citizen or the permanent resident, and then include evidence or proof of the abuse he suffered. And so it's not just for women. We really want to make sure that people understand it is for any spouse, that any individual that has been abused. And so, what types of abuse are considered valid? Of course, physical abuse, that is the one people most likely think of. But the other types of abuse that are valid would be emotional abuse, psychological abuse, as well as financial abuse as well, because people can be taken advantage of, unfortunately. And so we really do need to be able to protect immigrants who are suffering these different types of abuse from the person that they are married to.
Mhm. Thanks for that breakdown. Now, many survivors fear that without proof of physical abuse, they won't be taken seriously. How can someone build a strong VAWA case if the abuse is emotional, psychological, or financial in nature?
Absolutely. And so when I usually tell my clients that we have to first establish that the marriage was bona fide or legitimate, that the two of you entered into this relationship expecting it to last because you were so in love with each other. After we submit supporting evidence to show that the marriage was legitimate, that's when we then submit evidence to explain or demonstrate the abuse. And so, if there aren't pictures or police records or police reports or hospital reports to show that it was physical, what I have my clients do is write a letter. For example, a personal statement that is signed and notarized, of course, but detailing their relationship from the start to how they met, how they fell in love, who proposed to whom, who was at the wedding, their life together, and then slowly just start to describe the words that were used. And in these personal statements, it's very important for people to be as detailed and explicit as possible. So in terms of verbal abuse, if you were called negative names, if you were cursed at, depending on the person's sensitivity or their religious background, they may feel uncomfortable spelling out or writing out the foul language that may have been used. But that is exactly what we would need to show that there was a verbal abuse, that there was emotional or psychological abuse as well. Also, what would be key is to have friends and family members, maybe even coworkers, write letters of support as well. Affidavits that are signed, notarized with a copy of their ID, also detailing the fact that they knew Barbie and Ken were married, and that, Ken started suffering abuse at the hands of Barbie. Thirdly, I would also strongly recommend men. I know this may be difficult, but to go to a therapist, a licensed clinical social worker, some kind of therapist, and who will help them detail what the abuse they suffered, help maybe even provide steps for recovery so that they can then recover from the abuse they suffered. I know some men, former clients, who have gone to the hospital to also, because they needed to be on some type of medication to help them decompress, some kind of sedative or sleeping aid that they needed to be prescribed for them because they had trouble sleeping or they had trouble concentrating at work and things of that nature. So these are the, secondary sources of evidence that we will submit for a man who has suffered at the hands of a U.S. citizen wife, spouse, or permanent resident spouse.
Definitely. Well, that was actually profound. We know that filing VAWA can be overwhelming for male survivors who feel ashamed, isolated, or worried. What practical legal strategies do you recommend for helping these individuals move forward safely and confidently?
Absolutely. So the first thing, we always want safety to be adhered to, and safety is number one. And so the first thing I would tell anyone is, if you feel unsafe in your home, in your marital home, please find somewhere where you can go, that you will feel safe, whether it's a shelter or with a family or friend. Secondly, I would encourage these individuals, these men, to talk to someone, because you need other people who can substantiate what you've gone through. And the only way that can happen is if they know about what's going on. And so while some men may feel, whether it's cultural, or religious, or just, they feel like they're not being a macho man, and they're no longer, carrying that machismo, that pride, that ego that it is to be a man, please put all of that to the side and talk to someone. Because number one, for your mental health, to help you go through and get through the abuse you've suffered, but also so that people can help you, you need to see a therapist. There are actually therapists whose specialty is dealing with individuals who are applying for VAWA petitions. And so they know exactly how to speak to you, what questions to ask, how to um, analyze you, and where to put you on the spectrum, in terms of their therapy license. And so we have to keep that in mind. So if I, again, speak to someone, and of course, because your safety is important, you may need to consider getting a restraining order. If you do feel as though your physical safety is in jeopardy, or the emotional and psychological abuse you're suffering could escalate to become physical. Now, most women, let's be honest, can't really physically harm a man. Most women are not as strong as men. However, if she does hit you, or scratches your face, or breaks your skin, claws at your arm, something along those lines, please document that, and then go to the police and let them know. Every little bit of evidence does count and should be reported and included in your VAWA petition. But safety is number one.
Thank you. Let's talk about documentation now. What are the most important pieces of applicants could gather or create to support a VAWA petition? I know you mentioned like this personal statement and all, but what
Yes.
other could there be? Because some people don't feel comfortable doing a police report. What other documents could they also gather?
The personal statement, the affidavit in support from friends, family members, or coworkers is paramount. Even if it's a text message, let's say where you have proof you've been corresponding with your spouse, and in those text messages, WhatsApp messages, Facebook Messenger messages, there's abusive language or threatening language. I would like to take this moment to point out that even if someone has been threatening to call ICE against you or is using your immigration status against you, that is also grounds to file a VAWA petition, because no one should be threatened with their immigration status just because you may not want to do something your spouse wants, or you're not giving them what they need or what they want, and now they've resorted to threats whereby they would call immigration, call USCIS. That is also proof that there is abuse taking place. And so you do have to write that down. But another key point is that this is your story. USCIS is not going to reach out to your spouse and ask them, hey, John came out and said that you've been abusing him. Can you respond? This is in the court of law. USCIS is looking for your side of the story to explain how you have been abused and the abuse you've been suffering and why you deserve to get your green card because you have gone through abuse. I don't want to wish any abuse on anyone, but the reality is it does happen. And so when it comes to evidence, you want to document everything that's happening. Or even, for example, when it comes to financial abuse and the two of you have a joint bank account, and now Barbie has withdrawn all of the money from the bank account, and you can get a copy of your bank statement indicating that or showing that there was a withdrawal that she made from your bank account. If you have a joint credit card account and now there are, thousands of dollars that have been charged for a shopping spree at Costco or something along those lines, please print out copies or include copies of those credit card statements, those bank account statements, to show as well that there's even been financial abuse in the relationship.
All right. So for lawyers like yourself and or family members supporting a male survivor, what are some trauma-informed practices or things to keep in mind when working with someone who's sort of hesitant or is afraid to open up?
That's a great question. I met with someone recently who cried for the majority of our 30-minute conversation. And so it was actually supposed to be a 15-minute conversation, and it turned into 30 minutes because he was so devastated and hurt that he spent the majority of the time crying. And so, as an attorney, what my job is not only to think about facts and the law, but also to provide a space where my client does feel comfortable in even opening up. And so, one of the things that I kept saying to him while he was speaking to me was, "It's not your fault." And I also apologized that he even had to go through this. And I reiterated to him that there's hope for you. Don't feel as though there's nothing else that you can do, that all hope is lost. And so one of the things that I do want other practitioners in this field to keep in mind is to be empathetic. Sometimes as attorneys, we can be so goal oriented or detail oriented when it comes to getting the supporting evidence and filing the petition and making sure we respond to requests for evidence and things of that nature. But even just allowing your client to open up and speak and giving them space and understanding that to uh, uh, to have them feel comfortable may take some time of silence, where you're sitting in a space and just allowing them to cry, process their emotions, and express themselves may be necessary, because you want them to feel comfortable with you and even representing them. And the only way they can do that is if they feel comfortable talking about their experiences with you, so that you can then properly represent them.
All right. Thank you so much, Attorney Paul, for this it's been very enlightening, and it has been a very important subject to discuss. To everyone joining us from Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, thank you for being here. Whether you're a legal professional, community advocate, or someone just looking to understand this better, we're grateful to have you. If this is your first time with us, welcome. We are immigrationquestion.com, a two-in-one platform built with lead and case management features to help simplify the immigration process. Though we are not affiliated with AILA, we are trusted by a lot of AILA attorneys who use our platform. Also, with immigrationquestion.com, you can ask your immigration questions in any language and get connected with a licensed attorney for a free legal guidance. And yes, just like many of our users, you can also receive a free confidential initial consultation. Just visit www.immigrationquestion.com to learn more. And in some exciting news, we've just launched a new mobile app and designed to make access even easier for whether you're a user or an attorney. Attorney Paul, as someone who works with complex immigration and family law cases, what do you think immigrationquestion.com has been doing and has been helping the immigrant community and professionals like yourself?
One of the things that I believe Immigration Question is doing well is providing uh, clients or potential clients with resources. There's a slew of information out there, but some of the information is the wrong information. And so having a platform such as this that that corrects directly the user or the client or the immigrant with someone who is licensed and experienced, to be able to ask questions and get help immediately is something that should be modeled across the field of immigration law. And so that's one thing that I really do believe Immigration Question is doing well. Just being that source to have answers and guidance readily available.
Thank you for that feedback, Attorney Paul. Now, before we dive into the live Q&A, I just have one last question to ask. What would you say to someone listening today, especially a man in an abusive marriage, who isn't sure if they qualify or if they're allowed to ask for help under VAWA?
Well, the best thing to do is simply just talk to an attorney. Be ready to tell them about your situation, and just start from the beginning. If you're not sure if what you've been experiencing amounts to what would be considered abuse under these standards, simply speak to someone and ask questions, and then be ready to talk about everything that you've been experiencing, and then allow the attorney to give his or her feedback. Don't jump to conclusions and think my case isn't good enough or my case isn't strong enough. You really need professional guidance and expert guidance in this time to really be able to make the proper decisions about where you stand in terms of your immigration case.
Thank you. So we can start with our live Q&A. Um, it's been 5 months, still no decision on my EAD through adjustment of status. The estimated process time says 3.5 months. At ABC, is this normal? Now it's 5 months. Can I do any inquiry now or wait until 6 months?
Unfortunately, USCIS is incredibly backlogged. About 2 months ago, over 800 workers were terminated from their position. And so they're not only backlogged, but they are understaffed. And so unfortunately, when it comes to receiving a decision on your EAD or your work permits, you are going to have to exercise just a little bit more patience and wait for a decision to come through. If you did try to go, or if you do try to go on USCIS and submit a case outside of normal processing time inquiry, unfortunately, even though you've been waiting 5 months, you're going to get a bounce back indicating that this is still within normal processing times. So please just wait a little bit longer. If you do hit the 6 month or the 7th month marker, and then you still have not heard anything, at that point, I will submit an outside of normal processing time inquiry on their website.
Thank you. Next question is, my wife constantly insults my accent and calls me a burden in front of her friends. She also controls all of our money and won't let me send anything to my family back home. Can I still apply for VAWA?
I believe this could be the beginning of a VAWA application. However, at this point, I would recommend for you to speak to an attorney and detail more, because it would have to be more than insults and also controlling money. Like I would want to see more. So please call an attorney and be prepared to discuss everything that's been going on in your marriage.
Definitely. Next question is, I'm on a dependent H-4 visa, and my US citizen wife keeps threatening to cancel my immigration petition every time we argue. There's no hitting, just constant threats, shouting, and silent treatment. Does this count as abuse under VAWA?
Yes, especially because your wife is threatening to cancel your immigration petition. Though I will say, because you were on H4, that is dependent. I'm not sure why you're on H4, and maybe you mean H1B. But an H4 visa is an employment-based visa for a spouse who is also under an employment-based visa. So that's a dependent visa. However, please speak to an immigration attorney to go over the details, also for them to see exactly copies of your immigration records to know exactly what your current status is. Because I don't understand how you are a dependent H4 but your spouse is a citizen. So that would have to be clarified first, and then you can talk more about how your wife is threatening to cancel your immigration petition.
Definitely. Next question is, my wife says I'm only with her for a green card and often threatens to call ICE to ruin my life. I feel scared and alone, but I have no proof of her abuse. How can I start a VAWA petition for protection?
Well, firstly, I would recommend telling people what you're going through, friends, family members, or coworkers, so they are cognizant of the situation. But also start documenting everything. If you can record a conversation or record her while she's threatening, of course, discreetly, so that there's no retaliation, then you can start doing that as well. But also speak to an attorney so they can properly guide you after they've heard more about the actual facts of your case.
Definitely. Next question is, I'm a university professor from my hometown. My green card was based on marriage, but now my wife controls everything, even where I go and what I spend. Is there a way to stay in the US without her help?
So my follow-up question for this listener would be, what current visa do you have right now? Are you still on a conditional visa, or do you have your 10-year green card? If you already have your 10-year green card, you are free to divorce your spouse. Your spouse is free to divorce you because you already have your green card. But so I would want to know more about your case. But if you already have your green card, then you are in a different situation altogether, where what your wife does would not or should not affect you, and your ability to stay in America.
All right, thank you. Next question is, if I get approved under VAWA, can I later sponsor my children who are still in my hometown, or will my status stay limited?
Yes, you are able to sponsor or apply for your children once you have your green card. Now, of course, when they would be able to get their green cards, of course, depends on the country that they're from. Also, it also depends on how old your children are. If they're under the age of 21, under the age of 18, or older and married. Some people have older children who are married, and that will impact whether you're able to file for them and how long they would have to wait in order for their visa to be processed.
All right, thank you. And then I think this is the last but not least. Will applying for VAWA affect my chances of getting citizenship later? I'm an engineer and I don't want to look like I took the easy way out.
Absolutely. And let me just say this, applying for VAWA is not the easy way out. VAWA petitions typically take 2 to 2.5 years to be adjudicated, and you do have to submit a substantial amount of proof or supporting evidence to substantiate your claim. So if you do apply for VAWA and your adjustment of status application and it is approved, you will have to wait 5 years and file taxes for those 5 years minimum before you are eligible to then apply for your naturalization or your citizenship. It is not looked on poorly. It will not be held against you. There is still a waiting time after you get your VAWA and your green card before you're eligible to apply for citizenship. And the basis is at least 5 years of holding green card status, being having maintaining good character. So you can't get arrested, you can't commit a crime, you can't commit a felony or a misdemeanor, and you must pay your taxes for those 5 years, and then you would be eligible to apply for your citizenship.
Right, that was our last question. That was also an incredibly insightful session. Thank you again for joining us, and a huge thank you to Attorney Paul for the practical strategies, insight, and compassion you brought for today's discussion. We hope this conversation gave everyone clarity on VAWA. Don't forget at immigrationquestion.com you can ask your immigration questions for free and get connected to licensed attorneys who understand your case. You may also be eligible for a free initial consultation, so head over to www.immigrationquestion.com and sign up today. If you want to revisit this session or share it with a colleague, you can catch the replay on Spotify. Just search Borderless Talk by immigrationquestion.com. Also, for all immigration attorneys in the New York City or surrounding areas, you are invited to join our in person event in Long Island City on July 24th. Enjoy the company of like minded professionals over food and drinks and learning how to scale your practice. Head over to our website to RSVP. Join us again on Friday for another enlightening conversation on a major immigration issue. You won't want to miss it. Once again, thank you so much, Attorney Paul. We can't wait to see you again.
Absolutely. Thank